A Semester of Secrets. Chapter 1. A New Beginning. The autumn leaves swirled across the sprawling campus of Crestwood University, painting the walkways in shades of amber and crimson. Clara Nguyen, a second-year biology major, felt a familiar mix of excitement and nerves as she navigated the bustling quad. After a challenging freshman year, she was determined to make her sophomore year count: better grades, stronger friendships, and maybe even a spark of romance. At 19, Clara was optimistic but cautious, her heart still tender from the pressures of her first year away from home. Clara had always been a planner. Her dorm room was a testament to her organized nature: color-coded notebooks, a neatly arranged desk, and a vision board pinned with goals for the semester. But no amount of planning could prepare her for the unexpected connections that would soon reshape her world. On the third day of classes, Clara found herself in the university's main library, a towering building with stained glass windows that cast colorful patterns across the wooden tables. She preferred the library's quiet corners for studying, where the hum of whispers and rustling pages created a cocoon of focus. Settling into a table near a window, she opened her laptop and began reviewing her notes for an upcoming genetics exam. That's when she noticed him. Across the room, a young man sat alone at a table cluttered with books and a battered notebook. He had a mop of chestnut hair that fell into his eyes, which were fixed intently on a thick textbook. His fingers tapped a restless rhythm on the table, and every so often, he'd scribble something in his notebook with a kind of frenetic energy. There was something magnetic about him, not just his focus, but the way he seemed to exist in his own world, unbothered by the chatter of nearby students. Clara shook her head, trying to refocus on her notes. Don't get distracted, she told herself. But over the next few days, she kept seeing him in the library, always in the same spot, always immersed in his work. Sometimes he'd be alone, other times joined by a friend or two, but his intensity never wavered. Clara found herself stealing glances, intrigued by the quiet mystery of this stranger. Chapter 2. The First Conversation. It was a crisp September afternoon when Clara decided to take a chance. She wasn't usually bold, but something about the routine of seeing this guy in the library made her feel like she had to act. Gathering her courage, she packed up her things, walked over to his table, and cleared her throat. "Hi," she said, her voice a little shakier than she'd hoped. "I've seen you here a lot. I'm Clara, biology major. What's your name?" He looked up, startled, his hazel eyes widening for a moment before softening into a smile. "Hey, Clara, I'm Ethan, computer science." He pushed his notebook aside and gestured to the chair across from him. "Wanna sit?" Clara hesitated, then slid into the seat. "Sure, what are you working on? You always look so focused." Ethan chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Just trying to keep up with my algorithms class. It's brutal, but I love it. What about you? Biology sounds intense." They fell into an easy conversation, talking about their classes, their hometowns, and the quirks of university life. Ethan was from a small coastal town, a place he described with a mix of fondness and restlessness. Clara shared stories about growing up in the city, her love for hiking, and her dream of becoming a geneticist. The conversation flowed effortlessly, and by the time they parted ways, Clara felt a spark of connection she hadn't expected. Over the next few weeks, Clara and Ethan became library regulars together. They'd share a table, swapping stories between study sessions, and occasionally grab coffee at the campus cafe. Ethan had a dry sense of humor that made Clara laugh until her sides ached, but there was a guarded quality to him, a hesitation in his eyes when certain topics came up, like his family or his plans after graduation. Clara chalked it up to shyness, but she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Ethan than he let on. Chapter 3. A Growing Bond. As the semester progressed, Clara and Ethan's friendship deepened. They started meeting outside the library, grabbing lunch in the dining hall, walking to classes together, even attending a campus movie night where they whispered commentary to each other in the dark. Clara found herself opening up to Ethan in ways she hadn't with anyone else. She told him about her struggles with imposter syndrome, her fear of failing her parents' expectations, and the pressure to excel in a competitive field. Ethan listened with a quiet intensity, offering reassurance without judgment. "You're doing more than enough, Clara. he'd say, his voice steady. "You're allowed to mess up sometimes. It's how you grow." Clara appreciated his words, but she noticed he rarely shared his own struggles. When she asked about his life, he'd deflect with a joke or change the subject. Still, she didn't push. She was falling for him, his kindness, his quick wit, the way he made her feel seen. She didn't want to ruin what they had by prying. One chilly October evening, after a marathon study session, Ethan suggested they grab hot chocolate at a cozy cafe off campus. Clara agreed, thrilled at the chance to spend time with him outside their usual routine. As they sat by the cafe's fireplace, sipping steaming mugs, Ethan seemed different, nervous almost. He kept glancing at her, then away, his fingers drumming on the table. "Clara," he said finally, his voice low, "there's something I've been wanting to tell you." Her heart raced. "What is it?" He took a deep breath, his eyes meeting hers. "I like you, like a lot, more than just a friend. I've loved getting to know you and I can't stop thinking about you. But I get it if you don't feel the same." Clara's breath caught. She'd been hopping for this, even if she hadn't admitted it to herself. "Ethan, I like you too," she said, her cheeks warming. "I've felt it for a while." They both smiled, the tension melting into something warm and hopeful. That night, as they walked back to campus under a starry sky, Clara felt like she was floating. Their friendship had blossomed into something more, and for the first time in a long time, she felt truly happy. Chapter 4: Cracks in the Foundation. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Clara and Ethan went on dates, strolls through the campus arboretum, late-night pizza runs, even a spontaneous road trip to a nearby lake. They studied together, laughed together, and shared quiet moments that felt like promises. But as their relationship grew, Clara began to notice inconsistencies in Ethan's behavior. He'd disappear for hours at a time, his phone going unanswered. When they were with mutual friends, he'd withdraw, his usual charm replaced by a quiet unease. Sometimes. When Clara asked about his day, he'd give vague answers or change the subject. At first, she brushed it off. Maybe he was stressed about classes or dealing with personal stuff. But the doubts began to creep in, gnawing at her trust. One rainy afternoon, as they walked across campus, Clara decided to address it. "Ethan, you've been distant lately," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "Is something going on? You can talk to me." Ethan stopped walking, his shoulders tensing. For a moment he didn't speak, his gaze fixed on the wet pavement. Then he sighed, his expression heavy with something Clara couldn't quite place. "Clara, there's something I haven't told you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Something big." Her stomach twisted. "What is it?" He hesitated, then looked at her, his eyes filled with a mix of guilt and fear. "I'm not who you think I am. I didn't come to Crestwood just to study computer science. I left my old life behind for a reason. There are things I've done, mistakes I've made, that I'm not proud of. I was scared to tell you because I didn't want to lose you." Clara's mind raced. "What kind of mistakes?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ethan looked away, his jaw tight. "I got into some trouble back home. I was involved with some people, bad people. I made choices I regret, and I came here to start over. But it's not that simple. I've been trying to keep it together, but it's catching up with me." The words hit Clara like a wave. The Ethan she knew, kind, funny, supportive, suddenly felt like a stranger. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice breaking. "I trusted you." "I know," he said, his voice raw. "I wanted to, but I was afraid you'd see me differently. I still am." Chapter 5: The Weight of Truth. Clara didn't know how to respond. She asked Ethan to explain, and he did slowly, painfully. He told her about a group of friends from his hometown who'd pulled him into shady activities, petty theft, scams, things he'd justified as harmless at the time. When things escalated, he'd walked away, but not before hurting people he cared about. He'd enrolled at Crestwood to escape, to reinvent himself, but the guilt and fear of being found out had followed him. Clara listened, her heart aching with every word. She wanted to believe Ethan was still the person she'd fallen for, but the secrecy stung. She shared so much of herself with him, and he'd held back this huge part of his life. It felt like a betrayal, even if he hadn't meant it that way. "I need time to think," she told him finally, her voice quiet. "I don't know how to process this." Ethan nodded, his eyes glistening. "I understand, I'll give you space." The days that followed were a blur. Clara threw herself into her studies, trying to distract herself from the hurt. She confided in her roommate, Mia, who listened patiently and offered advice. "People make mistakes, Clara," Mia said. "But trust is hard to rebuild once it's broken. You have to decide what you're willing to accept." Clara spent hours reflecting, replaying her moments with Ethan. She still cared about him deeply, but she couldn't ignore the pain of his deception. She realized that trust wasn't just about love. It was about honesty, vulnerability, and mutual respect. And right now, she wasn't sure Ethan could give her that. Chapter 6. Moving forward. After a week of soul-searching, Clara met Ethan at the library, their old haunt. He looked tired, his usual spark dimmed. "I'm sorry," he said before she could speak. "I should have been honest from the start. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know I care about you." Clara took a deep breath. "I care about you too, Ethan, but I can't be with someone who keeps secrets like that. I need to trust the person I'm with, and right now, I don't. Maybe someday we can be friends again, but I need to focus on myself." Ethan nodded, his expression a mix of sadness and acceptance. "I get it. I hope you find what you're looking for, Clara." Walking away from Ethan was one of the hardest things Clara had ever done. Her heart ached, but she knew it was the right choice. Over the next few months, she poured her energy into her studies, joined a hiking club, and leaned on her friends for support. She learned to trust her instincts, to value her own strength, and to seek out relationships built on honesty. By the end of the semester, Clara felt different, stronger, wiser, more sure of herself. The pain of her experience with Ethan lingered, but it had taught her something invaluable. That trust is precious, and she deserved people in her life who valued it as much as she did. As she packed up her dorm for winter break, Clara looked out at the snow-dusted campus and smiled. The future was uncertain, but she was ready for it, bruises, lessons, and all.